This is December 3rd, and we are in Valdosta, Georgia, and we are interviewing Ann Huxford. And, good morning first.
Thank you.
And, Mrs. Huxford, could you please introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Ann Huxford, and I'm retired, and I live here in this big house by myself, except when our children come to visit, and then we've got a lot of people here.
And how did you meet your husband, Dr. Huxford, for
When
the first time?
it was the summer of, can't remember what year now, the summer of 54, and he was teaching at Georgia Southern, which was Georgia Teachers College then, and I was in my junior year there, and we're both from small towns nearby, and so we met each other before we went back to school in the fall, and by December we were married.
Wow. And, I know Dr. Huxford got his master's degree at Florida State University in 1960 after he got married. Could you talk a little bit about it?
Well, he had gotten his first bachelor's degree was from Bob Jones University in Greenville, South Carolina, and then at Georgia Southern, he got a second bachelor's degree in teacher education because he, at that point, wanted to teach in high school, do high school music. And so he did that for a couple of years, but then decided he wanted to get his master's degree from Florida State and be able to teach on the college level. And so that was when we went to Florida State, and he did that. But then after the master's degree, we spent 5 years in California at University of Pacific, and then he wanted to come back here so he could do his PhD. And so we came back here, and he got a job here at Valdosta State and ran back and forth to Tallahassee working on his doctorate, which took several years, but he was able to do it that way.
Oh, good. And what exactly it involved in terms of the logistics part of it? Like, how was it like in the schedule, in the weekly schedule, to be at the same time part of the faculty here and finishing a doctoral degree?
Well, he would teach his classes here and then jump in the car and drive to Tallahassee and do what he needed to do at Florida State and then come back up here. And, it was just kind of a back and forth thing. He took care of all his classes here, and then in his spare time, he went down there and did his work.
Oh, okay. And what were his expectations when he got to Valdosta State College?
Well, he wanted a teaching job back here. Both of our families lived in South Georgia, and so we wanted to be back here, not far away like we had been in California. And it was near Florida State, so he could complete his doctorate. And so that was the main thrust here. This was the nearest place that he could teach and do that.
Okay. And so when the Fine Arts was opened in 1969, how did it affect exactly his career? I mean, he was the first director of Fine Arts.
Well, he just had all these administrative duties as well as his teaching to do, but he enjoyed the paperwork, the administrative part, and part of his master's degree was in school administration. And so while some of his colleagues didn't like all the memorandums and the paperwork, he really kind of enjoyed it, and so that appealed to him.
Oh, that's surprising. And in 1971, he was promoted to the post of full-time professor at Valdosta State College. How did it happen? What was the process of that?
I know there were criteria that had to be met. You had to do so much publishing or writing, but I don't remember specifically. But I know there were steps that and I'm sure it's still true for promotion. A professor has to do so many things, and he went through that process. I've heard others talk about, well, I've got to write this paper, I've got to review this many books in order to get promoted.
And from that year, 71 to 72 and 73, he became the acting head of the arts department. What was, how did it happen?
Well, the head of the art department left for whatever reason, I can't remember, and they didn't have an art department head, and so they asked John if he would just take that on in addition to his other duties at no extra pay, I might add, but if he would just simply run the art department for a year or two. And so he did. He would go down to the art department for part of the day and do the administrative work in there, and then go back up to the music department and do stuff up there. But we really got to know the people in the art department much better than we would have otherwise, and they were all very helpful and supportive. Because he was very open about it. He said, I'm a musician, I'm not a painter, an artist. But they said, you know, you just do the paperwork, we'll do the artwork, and it worked fine.
Oh, good. And skipping a little bit in time, we're going to 1982 now. He was the head of the music department, and at that time, Valdosta State College became associated to the National Association of School of Music. And the official picture that we could have access to shows him as a very happy person at that moment. And could you tell us about it?
Well, that was a real achievement for him, because the school, our music department had to meet certain criteria before we were eligible to be a part of that. And so he had worked very hard to get all the things done that needed to be met, the standards that needed to be met, before we could be a part of that. And it had been achieved, and of course the faculty was very supportive. They helped him get it all done. And then he got to go. He had been to these conventions before, the National School of Music, but this was the first time he got to go as a full member, with our school as a full member. And so it was a big achievement for him, and he was happy about it.
Oh, good. And, I would like to listen a little more about his passions, like his music collection, his records and CDs. How did he get all that? And what about his compositions?
Well, he composed whenever he just felt some music coming. He always said he couldn't just decide that today I'm going to sit down and write a piece of music. It had to come when he just felt it, the creative urge. And sometimes we would just be riding down the road going somewhere, and he would pull off the side of the road and stop, and on the back of a scrap piece of paper he would write out some music furiously, because it had been going through his head. And then when we got back home, he would piece it back together. But along with the things that he enjoyed that you just said, he loved to travel. He really liked to go places, and he liked to go to other countries, and we traveled pretty widely, especially after he retired, and then after I retired. We took some pretty long trips, and he just loved traveling. I did not enjoy it as much as he did. I was the reluctant traveler. I was always saying, well, what's going to happen at home while we're gone for 3 weeks, you know? Who's going to take care of the cat and the dog, you know? I'm such a practical person. But that was his other passion, that he really liked to go places.
Okay. And would you add anything to what we've been talking about that you think I should include in my work about him?
No, not really. I think you've been pretty complete about it. We have 3 sons, and he was very proud of them, but he didn't want to push them into music. He wanted it to be because they wanted to, not because he was pushing them. But Ruth Sisson, who was our taught organ at the college at the time, when our first grandson was born, which was 30 years ago yesterday, and John tried to act kind of ho-hum about, well, grandchildren, But Ruth Sisson told me that the morning that Michael, our grandson, was born, that John came over to school and called all of them out of their classes where they were teaching to announce that his grandson had been born. And she said, he stopped the classes and he had tried to act like it wasn't anything important. And she said, he hauled us all out of class so he could make the announcement. So that was a different part of him.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time and your attention.
I'm glad you came over and we got to do this. And I'm sure that Cal, our son who lives here in Valdosta, he'd be happy to talk to you anytime you want to. He's in the phone book, or I can give you his phone.
Okay.
And he has email.
Okay, thank you.
All that kind of
Thank you
stuff.
very
If we have
much.
follow-up questions, can we come back?
Yeah, sure, yes. I'm always close by, or you can catch me out on the sidewalk circling the campus.
Right.
Thank
very
you.
much.